As a flute melody performs, Willie Loman returns to his home in Brooklyn one night, exhausted from a failed sales ride. His wife, Linda, tries to steer him to invite his boss, Howard Wagner, to permit him work in order that Gained should travel. Willie says that he's going to speak to Howard tomorrow. Willie complains that Biff, his older son who has come back home to go to, has but to make something of himself. Linda scolds Willie for being so important, and Willie goes to the kitchen for a snack. As Willie talks to himself within the kitchen, Biff and his younger brother, Glad, who is also touring, reminisce approximately their early life and talk their father's babbling, which regularly consists of complaint of Biff's failure to live up to Willie's expectations. As Biff and satisfied, disenchanted with their lives, fantasize approximately shopping for a ranch out west, Willie becomes immersed in a daydream. He praises his sons, now younger, who are washing his vehicle. The younger Biff, a high school soccer big name, and the younger Happy appear. They interact affectionately with their father, who has just back from an enterprise ride. Willie confides in Biff and Happy that he goes to open his very own commercial enterprise someday, larger than that owned by using his neighbor, Charlie. Charlie's son, Bernard, enters searching out Biff, who ought to take a look at for math magnificence for you to keep away from failing. Willie points out to his sons that even though Bernard is sensible, he isn't always properly appreciated, so as to harm him ultimately. A more youthful Linda enters, and the men go away to perform a little chores. Willie boasts of a phenomenally success income experience, but Linda coaxes him into revealing that his trip was in reality handiest meagerly a success. Willie complains that he soon won't be capable of make all the payments on their home equipment and vehicle. He complains that people don't like him and that he's not excellent at his activity. As Linda consoles him, he hears the laughter of his mistress. He strategies the girl, who's nevertheless laughing, and engages in every other reminiscent daydream. Willie and the female flirt, and he or she thank him for giving her stockings. The woman disappears, and Willie fades again into his previous daydream, inside the kitchen. Linda, now mending stockings, reassures him. He scolds her mending and orders her to throw the stockings out. Bernard bursts in, again looking for Biff. Linda reminds Willie that Biff has to return a football that he stole, and he or she adds that Biff is simply too difficult with the community girls. Willie hears the woman chortle and explodes at Bernard and Linda. Each depart, and even though the daydream ends, Willie maintains to mutter to himself. The older satisfied comes downstairs and attempts to quiet Willie. Agitated, Willie shouts his regret about not going to Alaska along with his brother, Ben, who finally located a diamond mine in Africa and have become wealthy. Charlie, having heard the commotion, enters. Happy is going off to bed, and Willie and Charlie begin to play cards. Charlie gives Willie a process, however Willie, insulted, refuses it. As they argue, Willie imagines that Ben enters. Willie by chance calls Charlie Ben. Ben inspects Willie's house and tells him that he has to capture and educate soon to take a look at properties in Alaska. As Willie talks to Ben approximately the prospect of going to Alaska, Charlie, seeing no one there, receives pressured and questions Willie. Willie yells at Charlie, who leaves. The younger Linda enters and Ben meets her. Willie asks Ben impatiently approximately his lifestyles. Ben recounts his travels and talks approximately their father. As Ben is ready to depart, Willie daydreams in addition, and Charlie and Bernard rush in to tell him that Biff and Glad are stealing lumber. Despite the fact that Ben ultimately leaves, Willie keeps to talk to him. Returned inside the present, the older Linda enters to find Willie out of doors. Biff and Happy come downstairs and discuss Willie's situation with their mom. Linda scolds Biff for judging Willie harshly. Biff tells her that he is aware of Willie is a fake, but he refuses to difficult. Linda mentions that Willie has tried to commit suicide. Happy grows irritated and rebukes Biff for his failure inside the commercial enterprise global. Willie enters and yells at Biff. Happy intervenes and eventually proposes that he and Biff go into the sporting goods commercial enterprise collectively. Willie straight away brightens and gives Biff a bunch of recommendations about inquiring for a mortgage from one and all Biff's old employers, Bill Oliver. After greater arguing and reconciliation, every person sooner or later is going to mattress. Act 2 opens with Willie playing the breakfast that Linda has made for him. Willie ponders the intense-seeming future earlier than getting irritated once more about his pricey home equipment. Linda informs Willie that Biff and Happy are taking him out to dinner that night. Excited, Willie proclaims that he is going to make Howard Wagner give him an eye process. The smartphone earrings, and Linda chats with Biff, reminding him to be first class to his father on the eating place that night. As the lighting fixtures fade on Linda, they come up on Howard gambling with a cord recorder in his office. Willie tries to broach the problem of running in Big Apple, but Howard interrupts him and makes him listen to his youngsters and wife at the twine recorder. Whilst Willie eventually gets a word in, Howard rejects his plea. Willie launches right into a prolonged recalling of how a legendary salesman named Dave Singleman inspired him to enter sales. Howard leaves and Willie gets indignant. Howard quickly re-enters and tells Willie to take some break day. Howard leaves and Ben enters, inviting Willie to sign up for him in Alaska. The younger Linda enters and reminds Willie of his sons and job. The young Biff enters and Willie praises Biff's potentialities and the truth that he's properly liked. Ben leaves and Bernard rushes in, eagerly expecting Biff's massive soccer game. Willie speaks optimistically to Biff about the game. Charlie enters and teases Willie approximately the sport. As Willie chases Charlie off, the lights rise on a distinct part of the degree. Willie continues yelling from offstage, and Jenny, Charlie's secretary, asks a grown-up Bernard to quiet him down. Willie enters and prattles on about a very big deal that Biff is running on. Daunted via Bernard's success, he mentions to Willie that he goes to Washington to combat a case. Willie asks Bernard why Biff grew to become out to be such a failure. Bernard asks Willie what happened in Boston that made Biff determine now not to go to summer season faculty. Willie defensively tells Bernard no longer to blame him. Charlie enters and sees Bernard off. Whilst Willie asks for extra money than Charlie usually loans him, Charlie once more gives Willie a task. Willie once more refuses and finally tells Charlie that he turned into fired. Charlie scolds Willie for always desiring to be preferred and angrily offers him the money. Calling Charlie his handiest buddy, Willie exits at the verge of tears. At Frank's Chop residence, Gladden enables Stanley, a waiter, put together a desk. They ogle and chat up a girl, leave out Forsyth, who enters the restaurant. Biff enters, and Happy introduces him to Miss Forsyth, persevering to flirt along with her. Miss Forsyth, a named female, leaves to smartphone any other name woman, at Glad's request, and Biff spills out that he waited 6 hours for Bill Oliver and Oliver didn't even recognize him. Disenchanted at his father's unrelenting false impression that he, Biff, become a salesperson for Oliver, Biff plans to relieve Willie of his illusions. Willie enters, and Biff tries gently, before everything, to tell him what passed off at Oliver's workplace. Willie blurts out that he became fired. Bowled over, Biff again tries to let Willie down without kid problems. Glad cuts in with feedback suggesting Biff's success, and Willie eagerly awaits the good news. Biff sooner or later explodes at Willie for being unwilling to listen. The young Bernard runs in shouting for Linda, and Biff, Happy, and Willie begin to argue. As Biff explains what occurred, their verbal exchange recedes into the historical past. The younger Bernard tells Linda that Biff failed math. The restaurant verbal exchange comes returned into awareness and Willie criticizes Biff for failing math. Willie then hears the voice of the resort operator in Boston and shouts that he isn't in his room. Biff scrambles to quiet Willie and claims that Oliver is speaking to his associate about giving Biff the cash. Willie's renewed hobby and probing questions irk Biff greater, and he screams at Willie. Willie hears the female chuckle, and he shouts lower back at Biff, hitting him and incredible. Passover Forsyth enters with another named girl, Letta. Biff helps Willie to the washroom, and, finding satisfied flirting with the women, argues with him approximately Willie. Biff storms out, and satisfied follows with the women. Willie and the female input, dressing themselves and flirting. The door knocks and Willie hurries the lady into the restroom. Willie solutions the door. The younger Biff enters and tells Willie that he failed math. Willie attempts to usher him out of the room, however Biff imitates his math instructor's lisp, which elicits laughter from Willie and the girl. Willie tries to cover up his indiscretion, but Biff refuses to believe his testimonies and storms out, dejected, calling Willie a phony little foe. Lower back within the eating place, Stanley helps Willie up. Willie asks him wherein he can find a seed shop. Stanley offers him instructions to one, and Willie hurries off. The light comes up on the Loman kitchen, where Glad enters looking for Willie. He actions into the residing room and sees Linda. Biff comes in her, and Linda scolds the boys and slaps away the flora in Satisfied's hand. She yells at them for forsaking Willie. Happy attempts to appease her, however Biff goes looking for Willie. He unearths Willie planting seeds in the lawn with a flashlight. Willie is consulting Ben approximately a $20,000 proposition. Biff approaches him to mention goodbye and tries to carry him inside. Willie moves into the house, observed through Biff, and becomes angry again approximately Biff's failure. Glad attempts to calm Biff, however Biff and Willie erupt in fury at each different. Biff starts off evolved to sob, which touches Willie. All people goes to bed except Willie, who renews his verbal exchange with Ben, elated at how notable Biff can be with $20,000 of coverage cash. Linda soon calls out for Willie, but gets no response. Biff and Glad pay attention as properly. They listen Willie's car pace away. Within the Requiem, Linda and Happy stand in shock after Willie's poorly attended funeral. Biff states that Willie had the incorrect dreams. Charlie defends Willie as a victim of his career. Geared up to leave, Biff invites Glad to move back out west with him. Satisfied publicizes that he's going to stick it out and not validate Willie's dying. Linda asks Willie for forgiveness for being not able to cry. She starts off evolved to sob, repeating "We're unfastened." All exit, and the flute melody is heard as the curtain falls.